Luke, I am your father. We've all heard it, right? Quoted it, maybe even done the voice.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's one of the most famous movie lines, period.
But here's the thing that kind of blows your mind. That exact line, it isn't actually in Star Wars.
Nope. The real line Darth Vader says is, "No, I am your father."
Wow. If that's absolutely not how you remember it, well, you are definitely not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that moment, that shared confusion, that sort of, wait, what? Feeling? That's the perfect way into today's deep dive, the Mandela effect.
That's it, exactly. The Mandela effect is basically when a whole lot of people, a large group, share the same specific false memory.
Right. They're absolutely adamant that something happened a certain way.
When, the actual facts, verifiable reality says it didn't. It's this strange clash between collective belief and, well, reality.
So our mission today is to really unpack this for you. We're going to look at where it came from, some really baffling examples. Seriously, get ready to question your own memory here.
Yeah, some of these are pretty surprising.
And most importantly, we'll dig into the theories. Why do our memories, yours, mine, everyone's, play these weird tricks on us?
We've looked through quite a bit, psych research, online discussions, all sorts of decils to pull out the key stuff for you.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. How did this whole thing even get its name?
Well, the term Mandela effect itself was coined by Fiona Broome, who describes herself as a paranormal researcher. This was around 2009, maybe 2010.
And the story behind it is, honestly, it's pretty unsettling. Broome had this really vivid memory of Nelson Mandela dying.
Right, dying back in the 1980s while he was still in a South African prison. She even remembered, news reports about his funeral.
But the reality is completely different. Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1990.
Became president of South Africa, a global icon.
And passed away much later, in 2013, at 95.
Exactly. But the really crucial part, the reason it caught on, was that Broome found out lots and lots of other people had the exact same detailed but wrong memory of his death.
That shared experience, that collective false memory, that's what gave the phenomenon its name.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't just one person misremembering.
It's kind of amazing how that personal error snowballed because others felt it too. And, speaking of that, some people who lean towards the more fantastical explanations.
Yeah.
They sometimes point to this old textbook, English Alive, from 1991. Apparently, it has a quote saying Mandela died July 23rd, 1991. They see it as proof of an alternate timeline or something.
Interesting. Which brings us to the question of why this captures people's imagination so much. Why do we find it so fascinating or even disturbing?
Yeah, why does it get under our skin like that?
Well, Dr. Wilma Bainbridge, who's done a lot of research on this, puts it nicely. She says it's because, quote, "We like to think we understand our minds well and have good control over our memories."
That makes sense. We trust our memories.
Yeah, exactly. So when memory seems to betray us, especially when it happens to lots of people at once, it gives off this creepy, eerie feeling, as she calls it.
Absolutely. That feeling is powerful. It's not just, oops, I forgot. It's like, wait, we all remembered this thing that never happened.
That collective aspect really amps it up. Finding out others share your specific wrong memory. It kind of validates your initial feeling, making the truth even more jarring.
It really shakes your sense of reality a bit. What can you trust if your own shared memories are wrong?
Precisely. It's unsettling.
Okay, so after hearing about Mandela, you're probably already thinking about your own memories. Let's test them.
All right, let's do it. We got some classic examples here.
See how many you remember correctly. Or maybe incorrectly.
Let's see how you do.
We already did Star Wars. Vader says, "No, I'm your father." But did you remember Luke? "I am your father." So many people do that Luke just feels like it should be there.
It does, and that's often how memory works, right? Our brain sort of fills in the blanks with what seems logical or maybe what we've heard repeated incorrectly over the years. It's reconstruction, not just recall.
Okay, next up.
Yeah.
The Berenstain Bears. Beloved kids' books. How do you spell that name? Berenstain.
Is it with an A or an E at the end? Berenstain or Berenstein?
Almost everyone remembers Berenstain with an E. I certainly did for years.
Me too. But nope, it's always been Berenstain with an A. That one is incredibly common.
Why that one, do you think?
It could be phonetic. Our brains might just default to the more common Berenstain spelling pattern we see in other names, overriding the actual stain spelling we saw. It's subtle.
Okay, here's one that still gets me. The Monopoly Man. Rich Uncle Pennybags. Does he wear a monocle?
Ah, the monocle question. What do you picture?
I absolutely picture him with one, clear as day, but He doesn't have one. Never did.
Right. That's a textbook example of a schema in action. We have this mental template, this schema for a, wealthy, old-timey cartoon character.
And that schema includes a top hat, a suit, and often a monocle.
Exactly. So our brain just adds it in, fills in the expected detail, even though the actual image lacks it. Mr. Peanut has one. Maybe we mix them up.
Maybe. Okay, Curious George. Everyone loves that little monkey. Does he have a tail?
Think about it. Picture George.
You'd think so, right? Monkeys have tails. But Curious George, nope, never had one.
And yet people remember one. There was even apparently an old party game called Pin the Tail on Curious George.
That's hilarious. So just pure expectation then.
Seems like it. We expect monkeys to have tails, so we mentally add one onto George. The game probably just played into that shared assumption.
Let's go back to Star Wars. C-3PO, gold robot, right?
Mostly gold, yes. But is he all gold?
I always thought so, but he actually has a silver right leg from the knee down.
That's right. A lot of people miss that or misremember him as being completely gold.
Why would that be?
Well, it could be a few things. Older movies, lower resolution, maybe the silver just didn't stand out much.
Or maybe the toys. I bet a lot of the toys were just all gold, easier to make.
That's a very likely factor, too.
Mm-hmm.
Our memory might latch onto the dominant color or the version we saw most often, like a toy.
Okay, logos. Fruit of the Loom. You know the fruit logo. Do you remember a cornucopia, a horn plenty behind the fruit?
A lot of people do. That big woven basket spilling out the fruit.
But it's not there. Never has been. Just the fruit, apples, grapes, leaves.
Again, could be a schema. Cornucopias are strongly associated with harvests, abundance, fruit. So maybe our minds just added in to make the image feel more complete or traditional.
Okay, let's shift to something even weirder. Things that people remember, but that never actually happened. Like the movie Shazam.
Ah, yes, the Sinbad Genie movie from the 90s?
Except it doesn't exist. Never did. Yet so many people have detailed memories of seeing it, renting it, specific scenes even.
That one is truly baffling.
Uh-huh.
It seems to be a powerful case of what psychologists call confabulation and maybe recombination.
Meaning?
Confabulation is when your brain fills in memory gaps with fabricated details, but you genuinely believe they're real. Recombination is merging bits of different memories.
So people might be mixing up Shaquille O'Neal's Genie movie, Kazam,
Right, which did exist.
with Sinbad, who was really popular in the 90s, and maybe even saw him dress as a genie for some TV special.
Exactly. The brain tries to make sense of these fragments, maybe prompted by someone asking, hey, remember that Sinbad Genie movie?
Yeah.
And it constructs a coherent but false memory of Shazam, and people are incredibly confident about it.
Wow. Okay, one more quick one. King Henry VIII, famous portraits. Picture him. Is he holding a big turkey leg?
That's the classic image, isn't it? The big feasting king.
But in the most famous portraits, he's not depicted holding one.
Nope. Again, it's likely a stereotype.
Yeah.
We associate Henry VIII with being large, maybe gluttonous, feasts.
So the turkey leg fits the mental image, the schema we have of him, even if it's not in those specific famous paintings.
Precisely. Our general knowledge or stereotype overrides the specific visual memory.
So, okay, we've gone through all these examples. It really makes you wonder, what is going on? How can so many people share these very specific wrong memories and feel so sure about them?
It is deeply strange. And the explanations people offer generally fall into two main camps, which on one side, you have the more, let's say, fantastical theories, the kind you often see debated online. And on the other, you have explanations grounded in cognitive science based on how we know memory works.
Let's touch on the fantastical ones first, the glitch in the matrix type stuff. It's important to say up front, these aren't supported by science, but they're part of the conversation.
Definitely part of the conversation. Fiona Broom, who coined the term, she leaned towards parallel universes, the idea being that maybe people who misremember are actually recalling events from an alternate reality they somehow shifted from.
Right, and sometimes people try to connect this to quantum physics, like the many worlds interpretation, Schrodinger's cat, all that.
Then there's CERN's Large Hadron Collider. That gets brought up a lot.
The giant particle accelerator in Switzerland, what's the theory there?
Well, it's this popular but totally unsubstantiated idea that the experiments there, smashing particles together at huge energies, are somehow messing with reality, causing shifts, opening portals to other dimensions, something like that.
Which started up again relatively recently, too, right?
Yeah, it opened back in 2008, had a shutdown, and was reactivated in July 2022. So people link Mandela effects appearing or increasing to its operation.
What did the scientists at CERN say?
They basically say their work just captures the public imagination, which is understandable, but it's not causing reality shifts.
Okay. And then there's simulation theory.
Right, the idea that maybe our reality isn't real, but a computer simulation. And these false memories, they're just glitches in the program or maybe edits made by the programmers.
Like in The Matrix, it's an old philosophical idea too, like Plato's cave, but The Matrix really popularized it.
For sure. Now, these ideas, parallel worlds, CERN effects, simulation glitches, they're definitely intriguing, right? They tap into a sense of mystery.
They do. But what's the scientific take on them? Are there big assumptions or leaps there?
Well, the main issue from a scientific perspective is that they're generally unfalsifiable.
Meaning you can't really test them.
Exactly. There's no experiment you can run to prove or disprove that we jumped timelines or that CERN is changing reality. They don't offer testable predictions. So while they're interesting thought experiments, they stay in the realm of speculation, not scientific explanation.
Got it. So let's switch gears to what cognitive science does tell us. The prevailing scientific view has explanations based more on, well, how our brains actually work.
Right, and the absolute fundamental concept here is that human memory is not like a video recorder. It's not perfect recall.
It's more reconstructive.
Precisely. Memory is a reconstructive process. Every time you remember something, you're essentially rebuilding that memory from bits and pieces of stored information. And that rebuilding process, it's prone to errors. It's fallible.
And those schemas we talked about play a big role in that rebuilding, right? The mental templates.
A huge role. Our brains use schemas and stereotypes, existing knowledge frameworks, to interpret new information and to fill in gaps when we recall things.
So we often remember what we expected to see or what fits the pattern rather than the exact reality, like the Monopoly man's monocle.
Exactly. And because many cultural schemas are shared, we learn similar stereotypes. This can lead to the same false memory cropping up in lots of different people. It explains the collective aspect. Think of Alexander Hamilton, often misremembered as a U.S. president because he's grouped with other founding fathers who were.
And memory can be changed after the fact, too.
Oh, definitely. Memories are surprisingly malleable. Information you get after an event can actually reshape your memory of the event itself. This is suggestibility.
Like if someone asks a leading question.
Yes, or introduces misinformation, even subtly. It's a big reason why eyewitness testimony, while important, needs to be handled carefully. Memories can get contaminated over time.
And you mentioned confabulation earlier with the Shazam example. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. Confabulation is basically the brain unconsciously filling in memory gaps with plausible but invented details. It's not lying. The person genuinely believes the fabricated parts are real memories.
The brain just wants a complete story.
Pretty much. It smooths over the gaps to create a coherent narrative. And this can happen more as people get older, but it happens to everyone.
It's amazing our brains just do that automatically.
It really is. And then there's recombination, mistakenly mixing up pieces of different real memories.
Like the Nelson Mandela example, maybe mixing memories of his actual imprisonment with news about Steve Biko, another activist who did die in prison.
That's a very plausible explanation for how that specific false memory could have formed and spread. You combine elements from different true events and end up with a new, false, but convincing memory.
And then the internet. I have to assume that just pours gasoline on this whole fire.
Absolutely. The internet is a massive amplifier. Information and misinformation spreads incredibly fast.
You find forums or groups where everyone shares the same false memory.
Exactly. And that reinforces it. You see hundreds of people online saying, yes, I remember the Berenstain Bears. And suddenly your own confidence in the correct spelling might waver. It creates this echo chamber that solidifies the false memory through sheer volume and repetition. Suggestibility goes way up.
Okay, so we have these cognitive explanations, but researchers are actually testing this stuff, right? You mentioned Wilma Bainbridge and her colleague Deepasri Prasad looking at the visual Mandela effect, the VME.
Yes, their work at the University of Chicago is really important here. They moved beyond just collecting anecdotes and started empirically testing these visual examples.
How did they do that?
Well, they'd show people different versions of popular icons, like the real C-3PO versus an all-gold one, or the Fruit of the Loom logo with and without the cornucopia. Then they'd test people's recognition, ask about their confidence, and even have them try to draw the icons from memory.
And what did they find? Did they actually confirm these common examples, like C-3PO's leg or the Fruit of the Loom logo?
They did. Their studies empirically confirmed that the VME is real for a specific set of images. They listed C-3PO, Fruit of the Loom, Curious George, the Monopoly Man, Pikachu's tail, the Volkswagen logo, even Waldo from Where's Waldo.
Okay, so it's not just stories, there's data. And people were confident even when wrong.
Very confident. That was a key finding. People often reported high confidence in the incorrect version.
But did they figure out why? Was it just people not looking closely or something simple like that?
That's what's really fascinating. Their research suggested it's not that simple. The errors weren't primarily because people weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Eye tracking showed they did look at the relevant features, like C-3PO's leg, and it wasn't just basic visual properties of the images making them confusing.
Something more complex is going on.
It seems so. And they also found something really striking. These VME errors can happen spontaneously during recall, like when you draw the Monopoly Man, you might add the monocle in, and even in short-term memory.
Wait, short-term memory, like minutes after seeing the correct version?
Yeah. People would see the correct image and then just minutes later still make the characteristic VME error when asked to recall or recognize it.
That's huge. That means it's not just about old, faded memories getting mixed up over decades or remembering some rare version you saw once. It's happening much faster.
Exactly. It suggests the VME isn't solely about long-term memory decay or source confusion from way back when. It points towards a more active mental process, maybe something inherent in how we perceive or reconstruct these specific images that leads to these consistent errors, even shortly after exposure.
So ultimately, is there one single explanation for all these visual Mandela effects?
Based on their research, it seems unlikely there's one single cause that fits every example. It's probably a mix.
Like the Monopoly Man might be mostly schema-driven.
Right, expectation fills in the monocle. C-3PO might be partly influenced by real-world exposure to all-gold toys or unclear movie images.
And maybe some images just have inherent properties, things we don't fully understand yet, that make our brains consistently misinterpret them in the same way.
That seems to be the picture emerging from the research. It's a complex interaction of schemas, exposure history, and perhaps intrinsic properties of the stimuli themselves. No easy single answer.
Wow. Okay, so we have covered a lot today in this deep dive. We went from that initial unsettling feeling of a shared false memory.
All the way through the origin stories, the mind-bending examples, the different kinds of theories, fantastical and scientific.
And ended up looking at the actual empirical research, trying to figure out the why, especially for those visual examples.
And really, understanding the Mandela effect, it isn't just about collecting quirky trivia, is it?
No, not at all. It's about understanding something fundamental about ourselves.
Exactly. It's about appreciating just how complex, how powerful, and yeah, sometimes how unreliable our own human memory can be.
It really challenges you to think critically about what you know for sure.
And it highlights how much collective experience and the sheer flood of information, especially now in the digital age, shapes our sense of reality.
It definitely makes you pause. So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. What other facts, what other shared beliefs might we all hold as absolute truths? Only for reality to be subtly or maybe even dramatically different. What stood out to you from all this that really makes you question your own memories and how they got there?